A few years ago, I worked as a night receptionist at a small mountain resort nestled deep in the Rockies. It wasn't the kind of place that saw a lot of activity, especially in the off-season. The guests were usually couples looking for a quiet getaway, or the occasional hiker wanting to disappear into nature for a weekend. The winter months were even quieter. Once the snowstorms hit, most people didn't bother making the trip up the winding, icy roads. It was during one of those snowy nights that something happened, something I've never been able to explain. I was the only employee on duty, stationed in the lobby of the main lodge. It was a charming, rustic building with creaky wooden floors and a massive stone fireplace. Outside, the wind howled and snow battered the windows. We only had 3 guests staying that night, all tucked away in their cabins. At around 10:30 p.m., I was going through the nightly routine of checking the logs and locking up when I heard the faint chime of the front doorbell. It startled me. Most guests didn't wander into the lodge this late, especially in weather like this. I glanced at the security monitor mounted behind the desk, but the screen was glitching, static rippling across it. Typical, I thought. The storm was messing with the system again. I walked to the front door and opened it to find no one there. The wind was brutal, whipping snowflakes into my face. I peered out into the darkness, but saw nothing, just the empty parking lot and the silhouette of the cabins in the distance. I chalked it up to the wind triggering the door sensor and went back inside. A little past midnight, I started hearing noises, soft thuds, like footsteps, coming from the hallway that led to the staff quarters. My first thought was that maybe one of the guests had wandered into the lodge and gotten lost. I called out, "Hello, can I help you?" But there was no response. I grabbed my flashlight and walked down the hallway. The thudding sound continued, growing fainter as I moved closer, almost as if it were retreating deeper into the building. The staff quarters were empty, and the only other door back there led to the basement. I stopped in front of it, feeling a strange chill despite the warmth of the lodge. The door was slightly ajar, and I swear I saw something move in the darkness beyond it. "Is someone down there?" I called, trying to sound authoritative. Again, no answer. The basement was used for storage, extra bedding, cleaning supplies, and old furniture. No one had any reason to be down there, especially not in the middle of the night. But the thought of leaving it unchecked didn't sit right with me. I pushed the door open and shone my flashlight down the stairs. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but dusty shelves and a concrete floor. I was about to close the door when I heard a low, guttural whisper coming from the far corner of the basement. It wasn't words, exactly. More like the sound of someone breathing heavily and muttering under their breath. The light in my hand trembled as I slowly descended the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. When I reached the bottom, I scanned the room. It was empty. The whispering had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. I stood there for a moment, feeling like I was being watched. Then I noticed something strange, a set of wet footprints leading across the floor, as if someone had come in from the snow. They stopped abruptly in front of one of the shelves, which was lined with old, forgotten items. But there was no one there, no sign of anyone hiding. I backed away, my pulse racing. As I turned to go back upstairs, I felt a sudden, overwhelming sensation of dread, like something was standing right behind me. I didn't dare look. I bolted up the stairs, slammed the door shut, and locked it. For the next hour, I stayed behind the front desk, clutching my flashlight and watching the security monitor. The static had cleared up, but the feed showed nothing unusual, just the empty lobby and the snowy night outside. I tried to convince myself that I was just imagining things, that the storm and the isolation were playing tricks on my mind. At around 2 in the morning, heard the front door chime again. This time, when I checked the monitor, saw something. A figure stood just outside the lodge, barely visible through the swirling snow. It was tall and thin, its face obscured by the shadows of a hood or hat. It didn't move, didn't try to come inside, just stood there, staring directly at the camera. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I reached for the phone to call the resort owner, but before I could dial, the screen flickered and the figure was gone. I ran to the door and looked outside. The snow was falling heavily, but there were no footprints. No sign that anyone had been there. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. When Hank, the owner, came in the next morning, I told him what had happened. He laughed it off, saying the wind and snow could mess with the cameras and make it look like there was movement. I wanted to believe him, but something about the figure on the monitor felt too real, too deliberate. A week later, one of the housekeepers mentioned finding strange symbols carved into the walls of the basement, hidden behind the shelves. She described them as crude, almost ritualistic, like something you'd see in a horror movie. Hank dismissed it as vandalism from before he bought the resort, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was connected to what I'd seen that night. I quit the job not long after that. To this day, I can't explain what happened in the lodge, but I know one thing for sure. Something was there, and whatever it was, it didn't want to be seen. What would you do if this happened to you? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the shadows hold more than just darkness.